Do you regard black magic as being purely fictitious, or is there some truth in it?
Some truth. 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years. I mean, when we talk about black magic, we are talking about Satanism, necromancy, alchemy, witchcraft, the worship of Satan.
Right, so welcome back to the channel, guys, and before we get into today's video, I just wanted to mention, because I did make a community post about it, but I know how YouTube like to just not show my community post to any of you. I made a post just letting you know that my Instagram was hacked, so if you followed my old Instagram, then I'll put a link on the screen for my new one. I'm not entirely sure who did it, but whoever did it hacked my account to push Bitcoin, which I'm not going to lie, I was pretty tight about. Like I always say, my videos take quite a while to make, which is why I post them on a monthly basis, but I am incredibly active on Instagram. So if you're looking for more daily decodes, and honestly, I really do be posting some A1 content on Instagram. I've got some crazy pictures of there, some reptilian eyes that I've got coming up from celebrities that you've probably never seen before. So yeah, if you aren't on my Instagram, I do advise you get on it, because the content I produce on there is very good and it gets a lot of traction, and I think that's why my account was hacked in the first place, because some of my posts were reaching a very large amount of people, and I find it highly ironic that I got hacked after my last post, which was about child handlers. And I can't even be bothered to go into it here. If you saw the post, you saw it. But if it's about Maisie Williams and how the person that she's with in the Sex Pistol films is a child handler, I find it highly ironic that I got hacked after that. You know, and it was on the 144th day of the year as well, and the guy hacked it to push Bitcoin. I mean, some people may say I'm reading too much into this, but if you think that, then you're on the wrong channel. Mark of the Beast equals 144, and listen to me right now, all this Bitcoin, all this cryptocurrency shit, that is the mark of the beast. There ain't no devil coming back, all right? We've been speaking about this AI shit for so long. But yeah, that's my spiel about my Instagram. So if you did follow me, come follow my new one. If you didn't follow me, still come and follow my new one, because yeah, I got jewels on there. I don't post shit. You guys know I don't post shit. You're only doing yourself a disservice not being on there, right? Right, that's done. Let's get into today's video. Now, today's video actually wasn't on my agenda to make, I'm going to be totally honest with you. However, I've received so many questions about this, so I thought I should address it. And the best way for me to do it would be in a video. Usually when I've got a bunch of people asking me the same question, there's usually a larger amount of people that applies to as well, that also are going through those experiences. So I thought this would be apt to make. Hopefully you find this video helpful. We will of course be touching on some topics that we've already spoken about on this channel, as you know, because all this information is holistic. So as you probably already know, the title of this video is Why Do You Keep Seeing 1111 or 1111? And I went through this personally many years ago, and hopefully I can shed some light on it. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I know many of you on my channel have had some weird experiences, either with how you found my channel or either with what's happened after you've watched some of my videos. For example, I've had people tell me they'll watch one of my videos about a specific number and then proceed to watch the next video, and the likes and comments are the exact same number that they were just learning about. And there's lots of examples like this, and you can actually go through my channel. Most times I've pinned these comments, and you can see some of the different experiences that people have when they come to my channel. And honestly, that's nothing to do with me. That's all you and your reaction to the way this particular matrix works. But we will get into that. Once you become aware of the numerical code that lays behind the GUI, and by GUI I mean everything that we perceive to be real, the overlay if you must, then your awareness starts to become attuned to different aspects of your environment, namely the numerical part of it. It's almost like a switch goes off in your brain and your body starts to dial in on these codes, which causes them to manifest. Before we begin, I would really like you to drop all preconceived ideas that you have about seeing the numbers 1111. Because they're probably wrong. I'm going to be totally honest with you, and I say this myself because I was also really confused by this concept when I was younger and I first got into this information. I remember researching the exact same question when I was around 14 or 15, because I just watched The Number 23 by Jim Carrey, and that film requires an entire separate video, to be honest. I watched that Number 23 film, came out the cinema, and just literally started seeing 23 everywhere. It was really strange. And after doing some very basic research and getting a grips to the idea of numerology and birth numbers, I started seeing 1111, just like some of you guys. And at that time, all that research led me to things like angel numbers, power numbers, and master numbers. If you see 1111, you know you have a guardian angel. You know you're on the right track. The universe is telling you to carry on. You know, that really vague, wishy-washy shit. And I honestly found it infuriating because it was not the answer I was looking for, and it did not resonate with me at all, if you catch my drift. And I never really liked all the angel number stuff. You know, telling me that 11 is a power number or a master number, but with no real explanation why, just kind of pissed me off, to be honest. And it sort of lends credence as to why people do think this is all quote-unquote conspiracy theory. You know, they say 11, 22, and 33 are master numbers, and my fucking question is, why are they master numbers? Can you give me a bit more of an explanation? You can't just use random adjectives to describe numbers and tell me that they're masters. I'd like more, please. This is where I was at. You know, so if you've had a similar experience and you're tired of all the metaphysical jargon, because that's all it is, you know, no explanation, just jargon, then this video is most definitely for you. So first things first, 1111 or 1111 is 4, obviously, because 1 plus 1 plus 1 up 1 is 4. Now, when we look at the Hebrew alphabet, we see that 4 corresponds to Daleth, the 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And remember, all of this information about the connection between numbers and reality is now based in Jewish mysticism, namely Kabbalah. So it makes sense as to why we must look to the Hebrew alphabet to get answers to this. As you can see in the image here, Dalet corresponds to the 14th path on the Tree of Life, which brings us to the path between Chokmah and Binah, okay, or wisdom and understanding. Now, to fully grasp the meaning of what 1111 or 1111 means, we must take a look at both of these Sephirot and examine what they represent on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Before we do that, let me describe to you what the Tree of Life actually represents, because, excuse me, I know everybody may not understand it and it can be a pretty confusing concept to try and research. Again, this is something else that I had to buy quite a few books for to understand. Probably the best book that I bought was The Secret Teachings of All Ages. That gave you a really good breakdown on both the Tree of Life, the Qliphoth, and Adam Kadmon. So if you guys need a book for reference to go to, you should go and find that book. So yeah, it can be a pretty confusing concept. So what I'm going to try and do is try and break this down as simply as I can, because there's no point in diving into the individual Sephirot if we have no comprehension of the big picture. And the Tree of Life is the big picture, trust me. Now in Hebrew, the term Tree of Life is used to denote the central mystical symbol used in Kabbalah, which is esoteric Judaism. Now Kabbalists typically refer to this symbol as the 10 Sephirot, Sephirot meaning spheres. However, the term Tree of Life is more universally known. What distinguishes Kabbalah from every other practice is this theory of the 10 Sephirot, or the 10 forces that come between the infinite unknowable God, also known as Ein Sof, and the creation of our world, which you find at the bottom of the tree in the very lowest Sephirot called Malkuth. Now, the 10 spheres represent the 10 archetypical numbers, and overall there are 32 paths in the Tree of Life. The first 10 are the Sephirot, or the spheres, and the remaining 22 paths corresponds to the lines or energy channels that join all the Sephirot together. Each of these paths corresponds to one of the 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And as I previously mentioned, Daleth, which is 4, or door, because Dalet means door in Hebrew, Dalet corresponds to path 14. Now, as I just said, there are 22 paths in total. Okay, now this is where the idea of 22 as a master number comes from, okay, because it's alluding to these 22 paths which represent the royal roads that lead from one archetypical energy center to another, or from one archetypical energy sphere to another. So when you start to research the Tree of Life, you get a bit more meat on the bones of these numbers. You don't just get told, oh yeah, it's a master number, it's an angel number. There's a bit more substance to it, and hopefully this is going to help you understand that. To successfully navigate these paths requires the harmonious blending of the forces represented by the two spheres it unites. For instance, in order to master the 14th path, which we're going to be talking about today, and have the ability to move through it, one must first harmonize the energy spheres that it's connected to, which again in this case is Chokmah and Binah, wisdom and understanding. So understand that to master all 22 paths in the Tree of Life is to bring balance to every energy sphere, which is another way of saying to bring balance to all the forces in ourselves. Okay, so now we're starting to get a bigger picture of what 22 means, because it's talking about 22 energy bodies that we need to in fact balance out. Because remember, the Tree of Life lives and breathes in each and every one of us. To put it in simple terms, the Tree of Life is a diagram that describes the universal laws of reality. Like a fractal, the Tree of Life is an eternal emanation of the divine principle. It is a macrocosm and microcosm. It lives and breathes within each and every one of us, and together we all form the branches of this tree. The 22 pathways woven by its branches describe how spirit and energy travels in order to make itself manifest into matter. So when you get told that 22 is a master number or a builder number, okay, now we're starting to get more information. It's a builder number because they're talking about the 22 spheres that you must master in order to make things manifest into matter, okay, which again is in the lower half of the tree. If you follow the path downwards, you find the body and our unconsciousness, our unconscious mind, okay, and if you follow the path upwards, you find the divine source of the soul and our higher selves. So this is how the tree is split into two. There are also 4 other quadrants that we'll talk about later, but for the most part, the lower half of the tree symbolizes our unconscious mind, and the higher part of the tree symbolizes the divine source. Now, this ladder to enlightenment can be better understood by analyzing it through similarities with parts of the human body. For example, as you can see here, the crown, or Kepha, is above the head, and the feet are Malkuth, which is earth, which is us, which is where we are, and that represents foundation and stability. So you can see what I mean here by it helps to map these spheres onto a human body, and it gives you a bit of context. Now, as I previously stated, each path on the Tree of Life corresponds to a letter in the Hebrew alphabet. This is important to understand because the Hebrew alphabet is considered to be of great importance as a celestial code or a blueprint to the cosmos. The 13th century Zohar is filled with references about the Hebrew alphabet's importance. Many master Kabbalists have told us before that one can gain supreme knowledge about the universe once you have mastered the Hebrew alphabet. Now, to sum up this rather long explanation, the Tree of Life essentially represents a series of divine emanations of God's creation out of itself, out of nothingness, the nature of revealed divinity, the human soul, and man's spiritual path of ascension. All of this can be found in the tree. And it's because of this that the Kabbalists developed the symbol into a full model of reality, using the tree to depict what can only be described as quite literally a map of creation. Right, so I'm glad that little spill's over. I've given you a little bit more information on why 22 is a master number, and we will get to 11 and 33 later on in the video. But remember, the 22 talks about the 22 paths and the different energy channels that all run through these spheres or these sephirot that we all have within us. And that talks about how we go from the unconscious mind into Ein Sof, into the mode of pure spirit, but it also works the other way, top down. It shows us how we can manifest from spirit into matter, okay, from the crown down into Malkuth, down in the earth, and it's by following these 22 paths, okay? That's why 22 is a master number, and that's why 22 is a builder number, because we're building through these channels, through these branches, okay? I hope I've explained that clear enough. Again, 111 takes us to number 4, which is Dalet in the Hebrew alphabet. We know Dalet means door or gate, corresponds to the 14th path on the Tree of Life. The 2 sephirot connected to the 14th path are Chokmah and Binah, wisdom and understanding. Now that we've spoken about what the Tree of Life actually represents, now we can take a deeper look at these individual sephirot and see what they're really talking about and what it has to actually do with 1111. Right, so let's start with Chokmah, or wisdom. Now, this is the highest of the right side of the sephirot, and it sits on the pillar of mercy. Chokmah, the second of the 10 sephirot, is the first power of the conscious intellect within creation, and the first point of real existence, okay, since the crown, or Keter, which precedes Chokmah, represents emptiness or nothingness, okay? So before Chokmah, you have the crown, which is nothingness, and then you move into Chokmah, and this represents the first real power of the conscious intellect. Now, according to the book of Job, wisdom comes from nothing, which would make sense because the crown is nothing. And where is that wisdom coming from? It's passing through that first energy channel from the crown down into Chokmah. Wisdom comes from nothing, so Chokmah is at the same time infinitely small, yet it encloses the whole of being, but it remains incomprehensible until it is given form and is created in Binah. What this means is that the wisdom we attain whilst in the body of Chokmah, whilst in the sphere of Chokmah, cannot truly be understood until Binah, or until we pass through the door and mediate our powers of understanding. So our wisdom takes form in Binah, which comes from that which we have learned in Chokmah, which emanates down from the crown, okay, or which emanates down from nothingness. Now, in the Zohar, Chokmah is the primordial point that shines from the will of God, which is Ein Sof, and therefore is the starting point of creation. That's very important. So the second Sephirot, Chokmah, is the starting point of creation because it's the first point of intellect that is a direct emanation from nothingness, which is the crown. Now, if we break down the word Chokmah, we see it is divided into these two words here. Koch, which means potential, or Koch, I can't actually say that word, I'm not going to lie, but you can see it on the screen, which means potential, and Ma, which means that which is. So Chokmah means the potential of what is, or the potential to be. This aspect of Chokmah describes the state in relation to the crown, okay, because remember, the crown is emptiness. So when this emanation comes down and passes through the energy channel down into Chokmah, it has the potential to then come fully into manifestation through Binah, but it hasn't really hit that point yet because it's still this emanation from nothingness. I know it's difficult to understand, but I hope I'm explaining this. As Chokmah emanates from the crown, the first dawn of infinite light, it appears in a dark and indefinite state that is virtually synonymous to non-being, okay? So this information that we attain while in Chokmah, what they're trying to say is it's still in the dark and in an indefinite state of non-being because it hasn't been acted upon yet. It hasn't been passed through that doorway, okay? And we're going to get to what that means in a second. And again, as stated in the book of Job, and Chokmah emerges from nothingness, where the light of Ein Sof unites in the world. So from the point of relation to the crown, Chokmah essentially represents raw, unmanifested potential. It is only once we pass through this door, or Daleth, into Binah, that we see this wisdom actually take form, okay? So now let's look at Binah a little bit more in depth. Binah is best understood as processed wisdom, I think. Also known as deductive reasoning. It is the understanding of one idea from another idea. While Chokmah is the intellect that does not emanate from the rational process, but rather from Ein Sof, or nothingness, which is actually the complete opposite to the rational process, because there's nothing rational about this form of God, which is what Ein Sof is. Remember the quote I showed you earlier, wisdom comes from nothing, okay? Binah is the counterpart, the fully rational process that is innate in each person, which works to fully develop this intellect. Binah is also known as the full expression of the creative power of femininity. And this is because Binah receives the stream of supernal light from above and continually gives birth to the externalization of the divine energy that sustains the lower seven Sephirot. Okay, therefore Binah is viewed as the mother of the seven. This is a very, very common thing that you'll hear in lots of TV shows. Okay, the mother of the seven. This is what this is all alluding to, and this is why people have tied the number 7 to feminine deities. But we'll get into that in a bit. Binah is the prototype of the wise mother. It is the seat of understanding, judicious restriction, and objective judgment. It's also known as the source of life because it is the Sephirah which, in the process of emanation, elucidates the inner world and expresses it as a coherent active force. Okay, so we've got this energy and this raw potential that's emanated down from the crown into Chokmah. Okay, and now we take it through this door and we take it into this rational deductive reasoning in Binah, which really allows this force of Chokmah to take some shape and fully manifest and be expressed in a coherent way. Okay, so in other words, Binah takes this raw force of Chokmah, or this raw wisdom, and channels it into various forms of creation. For example, in a car, you have the fuel and the engine, okay? Well, Chokmah is the fuel, pure energy. Binah is the engine, yeah? Either one is useless without the other. So Binah is typically understood as feminine because it essentially gives birth to the entirety of creation. Understand why you see Binah used in so many different occult practices under so many different names, okay? Binah is the yoni, Binah is the womb, Binah is the priestess card in the tarot, Binah is the Virgin Mary, it's Hecate, it's Juno, it's every female archetype you can imagine. And Crowley ties Binah to Isis, and that's where the whole 7 and Isis thing came in. And of course, I've told you before that Isis's number is 7. If you go back and watch my 9/11 video, I've spoke to you about how the number 74 is really Isis on the cube. I'm not going to go into that here. Go watch my other video. So now you know why, because it's always attached to a feminine deity purely because this is the Sephirah that maintains the lower 7, which is actually the 3 realms of where creation begins. All right, and I know you're probably thinking at this point, yo, numbers, what the fuck does any of this have to do with seeing 111? Get on with the point, mate. Well, I am getting there. And I promise this little preamble I've just given you is absolutely necessary for you to understand the following discussion, okay? But before we move on, let's just do a little recap. 1111, okay? Sums to 4, which corresponds to Daleth, 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. When we map Daleth onto the tree of life, we see it corresponds to path 14. Path 14 mediates Chokmah, wisdom, and Binah, understanding. Why we're looking at the tree of life? Why are we looking at the tree of life? Well, it is a central topic in esoteric Judaism, and as you know, Gematria is a Jewish practice, so it makes perfect sense to look at the very system that combines existence with numbers to find out our answer. Okay, and so far, what can we take from this? I personally see 1111 as a gateway or a doorway. And I know a lot of you guys who have been following me for a few years now know how I've told you guys about how the number 101 is a portal number and it opens gateways. Well, 101 is just 11, and this is in this 1111 that you're seeing here. So it all comes together. You're going, it's the doorway, it's the gateway, okay? And there's a second part to this video, and we're going to get more into the 11s and the single 11 and what it means. But for now, it can be best understood as 1111 is simply, it's a doorway. It's a doorway from wisdom to understanding. Now, insofar as why this code is manifesting in your life, I personally believe that this particular code manifests when the subject has stumbled upon or is contemplating some new world-changing information or knowledge. Okay, now I use this word world-changing, which might sound out of place, but let me try and explain myself here. We've already discussed on this channel how the universe is essentially holographic, okay? One big mental projection. I've also shown you that words create worlds. So with this in mind, take yourself back to what I said about the feminine nature of Binah and how it provides the supernal womb for the lower 7 Sephirot, which actually represent creation, and in doing so brings into fruition the knowledge of Chokmah. This is obviously the process of creation, which is why Binah is known as the mother. That very process is going on inside of you when you see 1111. Let me explain. The person that keeps seeing 1111 in some way, shape or form have stumbled upon some information that is trying to activate itself through the womb of Binah. You've stumbled upon something that has the potential to change your world. Remember, the world is holographic. You can change your world just like that. It takes a thought, but you need to be strong with your thoughts. And sometimes the universe tries to tell you to be strong with your thoughts. So the universe is trying to reveal this to you in the only way it knows how. And that is through numerical codes. And that obviously ties into the fact that we do in fact live in one huge number generator. So if the universe is communicating to you, one of the first ways it's going to attempt to do it is through numbers, will be through the times, because it will dial into your body's clock. Our bodies they run off these clocks as well. Remember, they run off these archetypical numbers. That's what the tree of life is about. So this is the universe trying to tell you in the only way it knows how that you've found something or you've stumbled upon something that really needs to be taken one step further. But you have to go through Binah first before you truly see what that is manifest. And I know this makes a lot of sense to me because when I saw 1111, it was very early on in my journey, and I haven't seen this for about 7 years now. Now I see different codes that I'm still trying to figure out. I see 216 a lot. I always look at the clock at 16 minutes past 8 in the evening. 2016, it seems to be one that I'm dialed in on at the minute for some reason. Once you move into a space where that knowledge that you have attained in Chokmah has been fully processed and understood, you won't see that 111 anymore. But that's not to say that this can only happen once. You can go through this process multiple times in your life, depending on what it is that you're exposing yourself to. And it's no coincidence that people start seeing these number synchronicities pop up once they have been acclimated with certain information. And of course, I don't know what you've been exposing yourself to, other than my videos, of course, so I can't pinpoint exactly what it is for you that you've stumbled across that's trying to push you through that door if you are seeing 111, but what I can say that it is something very, very important. With that being said, turning our attention back to the Tree of Life, we can see that the planet associated with Binah is Saturn. As you can see here, this is the glyph. Now, this is interesting given what we know about Saturn's role in this simulation. This could mean that this Sephirah of understanding can only be mastered once you've been introduced to Saturn, really, and that could come in many different forms, you know. Once you've been introduced to the idea of the matrix, quote unquote, or the Saturn matrix, quote unquote, maybe that is what pushes that information through and activates the doorway to Binah, given that the glyph for Binah is Saturn. So that might be why some of you guys are seeing it, because of my channel. Could be a bunch of other people who have been talking about this stuff, because this Saturn information has been around for a long while, you know, from Jordan Maxwell, Santos Bonacci, Phil Valentine, Bobby Hemmett, and many others. They've all spoken about the role of Saturn. So if you're familiar with any of these lecturers and any of this information, there's a high chance that at some point in your life you've gone through this process of seeing 111. Remember earlier I mentioned that Chokmah is associated with the bright side of the brain, while logic dictates that Binah is obviously associated with the left side, given that it is on the left side of the tree, on the left-hand pillar. Now, within Chokmah lies the soul of an idea. Hence, right-brain people tend to see overall general problems rather than grappling with individual components. Some scientists and artists employ non-analytic approaches to solve problems. You know, they walk or meditate or daydream or even sleep on it. And this allows right brain activity to emerge, okay? It's the infusion of the Chokmah flow. And although in the 20th century it's become really fashionable to call right brain activity as the solution to all problems, you know? Everyone wants to get in their right brain this, right brain that. But the truth is both hemispheres are necessary in their respective capacities. Even the most creative people need discipline and dedication, you know, if you're to produce anything worthwhile. And this derives from left brain activity. So it's not all about right brain. You need to find that perfect balance between right and left brain, or between Binah and Chokmah, or between wisdom and understanding. Using a Kabbalistic point of reference, the sparks of Chokmah must be harnessed by the shaping quality of Binah, which taps the Chokmah energy and puts it to good use. So 111 can also be understood as a gateway to bringing balance to both hemispheres in the brain, quite literally. And this story has been told over 100 times in many different ways. The most common is in Star Wars, and the idea of balancing the Force. And it goes a step further than that, because I know I haven't told you guys yet, but there will be a part 2 to this video where we talk about the 11th Sephirah, which is Darth, or Death. Just food for thought, Darth Vader was the hidden Sephirah. Star Wars is all Kabbalistic, and Darth refers to a type of transformative threshold from good to evil and evil to good, which I don't really want to get into in this video. But in analogy to that, the movie character Darth Vader goes through the same process of good to evil and evil to good. Also, one more thing I will add, that Vader's son was Luke, okay, which comes from Luz, which means light in Latin. So obviously he was the archetype of the good guy, you know, Luke Skywalker. But then again, we also have terms such as the light bearer, and we know that that is synonymous with Lucifer. So we've got that dual meaning going on here again with that those particular characters. There's a lot going on in Star Wars, and I will break that down in a separate video. Right, to sum all of this up, if you keep seeing 1111, it means you are being told to go through the door. It is the universe's way of telling you, or the simulation's way of showing you, that the raw creative force that exists within Chokmah and exists within you is ready to be channeled into Binah to bring about a real change in your world. Remember, words create worlds and thoughts create things. So the simple act of you reflecting and sitting on some profound knowledge, some information that you might have stumbled across, is enough to quite literally change your world and make a new world for you, framed by whatever wisdom it is that you attained while you was in Chokmah. And that is why the first three Sephirot we've been discussing form a pyramid, and the first pyramid at the top of the tree of life, this right here, is your Trinity. And remember, light manifests through a prism, through 7 rays. Well, these 7 rays correspond to these 7 lower worlds that Binah maintains, where creation begins. So this top Trinity right here, this is the plane of spirit, and these lower 3 worlds, these lower segments where we see creation take place, are exactly like the 3D world we live in. So we'll see 3 different planes of existence, and this is where the energy passes through before it reaches Malkuth. But everything starts in the world of archetypes up here, which is where we see our Trinity, and from there is a trickle-down effect until we arrive in Malkuth, which is Earth. And Malkuth is really the crown. These two are connected, but again, that's for a different video. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that explains why you've been seeing 1111. Gives you a better explanation than what you've found. And the next part of this video, I'm going to go into the number 11, I think, a bit deeper, tie it into the hidden Sephirot, because not many people know about that. So yeah, that will be out soon. Thanks for watching.